I did want to ask you though, man, how did it feel doing your first special at the Vic, which is such a cool venue in Chicago, and having Sebastian Maniscalco, who's like one of the big names in stand-up comedy, be like the producer of it? How did it, give me the rundown of how it came about?
Well, I talk about living up there. I that lived right there by the Vic, so it was cool being back in that neighborhood and in that part of the city. Sebastian was talking about doing this for like the last year and a half or something before we taped it, and to his credit, he had me do the set in LA at the Improv, and it was kind of tough. It was like a Wednesday night at the show started at 10. And so I'm doing like a 45-minute set on a Wednesday night at the Improv, and it's like, it was not that great. It was not a fun experience. So, I mean, it was a good show, but, it just wasn't ready. So we kind of tabled it for a while, and I tried to get some new shit going and back on the road with him. And we picked a date. We revisited it. I sent him a tape again. And, the fact that he is doing that, did this for me and, continues to bring me out on the road with him. And it's just the most you could do for somebody, like putting your name on a special. And so it was just a great overall experience. And to tape it in Chicago was cool.
That's pretty amazing. I'm a big fan of that guy. I like his humor. He definitely, I love how he opened his special when he did at the Chicago Theater, because his dad sounds like my dad. His opening joke where he tells his dad, I'm filming this at the Chicago Theater, and his dad immediately goes, "Where's everyone supposed to park?" Like that's my dad. That is such a Midwest Chicago dad type of vibe there, where it's just like, yeah, good for you, but did you think about anyone else? You know what it's like? It's a nightmare down there. You know what I mean? State Street, there's nowhere to park. It's a mess. It's traffic. But dude, that's such a cool thing. How did you meet Sebastian?
I met him at Zany's. I met him when I was House MC there, and that's when he was like selling out the clubs and really starting to take off. And he would come through, and it was like just bananas. He would sell out like the whole week. And then I kept opening for him. And in fact, I opened for him at that special, the one you just referenced with the parking joke. He was taping it here, and I had opened for him. Cindy with Zany's helped me with that one as well, connected us again. So we just always stayed in touch.
That's awesome.
I randomly got paired up with him like on a couple, or at least one corporate gig, just randomly, and we're working together again. So it's been a really good relationship. I've learned a lot from being with this dude, man. It's really, he's just such a hard worker. Like the what he does to like what he puts into the career and how he is like relentless, and then on top of it, always just doing new material. But he's real performer too, right? Like he flips a switch. He's not like, he says it in his book, he's not like jumping off the page in real life. He's kind of a reserved dude, kind of refers to himself as a cat. And, we have a really solid friendship and relationship, but I give him space. He's a kind of just like a focused dude.
Yeah, you think you'd have to be. I know he's been doing movies lately, which I think he's a great actor in. I really do. I like what I've seen from him. But he's pretty much made his bread and butter and made his name as a straight up stand up, which you just don't see a whole lot of. Like, I mean, obviously there's, I think Burr's one of those guys. Brian Regan was one of those guys. People who just built up a fan base strictly off of like just kicking ass on their shows. And I know he kind of blew up on Vine a little bit. Was it one of those apps? I know he kind of started to get a following.
Yeah.
Do that whole "aren't you embarrassed" thing.
Yeah. He's
too funny.
He's done great with the social media stuff and acting. Yeah. I know he's like really wants to focus on that too, because it's really, we had a conversation during all this, touring was always like you said, it was the bread and butter of that's kind of like what everybody thought would always be there. That was always the fallback, right? Like there's
Yeah.
always touring. There's always going to be, we can always do live shows. I mean, and isn't it just like an eye opener? Like, what? Like this just obliterated, right?
It's
So I
awful.
think that everyone's kind of pivoting and looking for other things to do, diversify, and he was already kind of on that path anyway. So I know he'll be all right, but it's it's gonna be like so much better when touring comes back.
Did you get to go on a private jet with him or anything like that?
Yeah, a few
That's
times.
awesome. That's so awesome.
Yeah, he's we stay in nice hotels, and but he's not like throwing money around, and I think he's pretty smart with how he does it. But the plane thing is like that. Can you imagine? Like, you get used to that. And I'll say to him sometimes too, like, dude, like, does this start like at an open mic? Like, it's kind of that's how it starts, right? It starts with an open mic, and now you have a private jet for the weekend.
But you know what, dude? You have a great work ethic too, because like I think I was going to go into it. You mentioned you didn't start stand until you were 31, but I feel like when you started, I think I met you when you were like 8 months in, because I remember you and I talked at, I think it was Hoghead McDonough or Ace Bar. It used to be called Hoghead McDonough's, but it was Ace Bar's open mic because we both had a similar joke. And I remember just approaching you. I thought your set was funny, but I approached you because I'm like, oh, I don't want you to think I took it from you or for you from me, but just it's similar enough. And we were both like, the joke's going to be dead in 2 weeks anyway, because it was like a topical joke about how there was a 14-year-old kid who impersonated being a Chicago police officer.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And I can't remember what the rest of the joke was, but I think our both had the same.
Was it about his like shoes having the wheels on them, like the?
Yeah, I think we both had like the same like viewpoint of like they were gonna figure it out eventually when he was, not shaking down immigrants or something like that. Like I don't know. But we did some like little dig at the police department, which at the time people had a sense of humor.
Yeah,
I remember like a couple of my earlier jokes, because I grew up in a cop neighborhood and a lot of my friends were becoming cops at the time. And my friends' dads were cops, and like, it wasn't out of a place of like, fuck the police at all, but you could make a couple jokes about cops and it was fine. I think if I made those jokes now and there were cops in the crowd, they'd be like, what the fuck, man? Like it's just a different atmosphere. I'm realizing now that I'm talking about it. But
yeah, right.
but I remember you told me you were coaching and like teaching, and then you went into comedy. And I think you were like, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to like go in with a game plan and not half-ass it. And I think that goes to show, because I know there's some people out there with negative mindsets. I'm talking about other comedians, not me and you, of course, where they'll be like, well, Pat got lucky. He got lucky. Sebastian saw him. I'm like, well, sure, that part of it, maybe, but you still were hilarious. You know what I mean? You have to be good. A lot of people like
Yeah,
it might get seen by someone, and if you suck, then the opportunity isn't there. You were good. Like, you created your own luck by being good and putting yourself in a position where big name comedians could see you.
I think that it's a combination of so many events, right? I mean, the biggest thing before that was I got to house MC at Zany's, and once I was doing that, I got a lot of stage time. That's the biggest thing that everyone needs, right? And
Yeah.
I didn't even realize how fortunate I was to have that until I did, and that was to me like just getting up all the time and networking, not like deliberately networking, but you meet people and you that all starts to grow. And yeah, it's just kind of like, but I could always work harder, which is I mean, that's all of us, right? Sometimes you don't feel like writing, sometimes you don't want to listen to the show you recorded. It's like those things where I found myself like I got to push myself to do. It's like the fundamentals.